Welcome to the Lone Wolf Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle. This is my friend Jeremy. He's the owner and founder of The Daily Discipline. We'll link all of his socials below. But this is our first run. And in the Lone Wolf Method today, what we're going to talk about is what that means to us, who we are. So let's start with why we live like this. Like what is the Lone Wolf Method? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So the lone wolf method to me is the effort that goes unseen. I think a lot of people try really hard to do these things and they lose focus or they lose motivation. They lose sight of their goals. These things become too heavy when they all compile on each other. The lone wolf method is a series of systems and ideologies that sort of, I'll say, stack. They stack on each other. And what that does is it sort of takes away this heavy burden of choice, this heavy thought process of, oh my God, I got to go do this. Oh my God, I got to get to the gym. What am I going to do at the gym? I think this is a recurring theme that you're going to hear a lot in this show. And what you'll find is that the more prepared you are, the more victorious you are, right? And victory loves preparation. That's kind of my mantra. It's what I live by, and it's one of the many pillars in this ideology that we've sort of created. Preparation in all aspects and all pillars really wins the day. So for me, the lone wolf method is just the approach, that discipline, that daily discipline, right? It is that focus, and being able to do it on your own and not needing a crowded gym to motivate you, not needing those peers around you in that sort of competition level, just paying it forward to yourself, understanding the long-term benefits of these things and why we do it, really finding the motivation on your own. That's what it is. It's lone wolf. But that being said, here we are as a two-man pack, right? So a couple of wolves and a two-man pack. So what do you think is the lone wolf method, or where do you apply your daily discipline in that sort of genre?
Well, something you said just now really resonated for me, Kyle, about things compounding, right? Obligations in life just um, can become overwhelming, right?
Oh,
As you know, as I've got two young boys and a mortgage and responsibilities, right? And you know that doesn't that hasn't decreased over time. That those responsibilities only compound and increase over time, and
yeah,
that can be overwhelming, to be honest.
yeah.
So I love what you're saying about organizing these responsibilities in terms of systems, right? And
Mhm.
trying to set some order so that things can be either made more efficient or more manageable, I guess would be a more appropriate way of thinking about it. And I try to do that. I think we all try to do that to an extent naturally,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be really successful, right? And other times, a lot of times for me, it can just wind up creating a lot more chaos in
Yeah.
my life.
Oh, I have to get this done.
Yeah, and that can be stressful, right? So I love what you're saying here. I love this notion of the lone wolf method, right? And systematizing, if that's a word.
We'll
A
make it
lot
a
of
word.
these, yeah,
We'll make it a word. Systematizing. That's
yeah,
new.
right.
Patented.
Systematizing, yeah. I mean, look, if there's a way to make things more manageable overall,
Yeah.
right? Then I'm all for. We've got a lot to learn by talking about our own experiences and
Oh,
sharing those.
that's why we're here. That's why
Yeah,
we're doing it.
and we don't do that often enough.
You know what? Something you just said kind of struck something for me, and I think that the big challenge for most of us is that when you have to make choices during the day, you begin to fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason when you go to the grocery store that they put all the crap by the registers. This is true science,
Yeah.
and you know this,
Oh yeah.
right? You start in
Oh,
produce, you
that'll
get your
get you.
meat,
Yeah.
yeah, you get your bread and your grains, and then you've made 100 decisions, and by the time you get to the register, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
I don't want to make any more decisions, so those Cheetos look really good.
Yeah.
That Coke looks amazing.
Especially if you have your kids with you too. They'll
Yeah,
that's
yeah, sure. Get
they'll
whatever you
wear you
want. I'm
down at
done.
that
I just want
point.
out of here. I
Yeah.
just want out of here. And that's the point is if you have to make decisions all day long, you're going to fatigue and you're going to take the path of least resistance. And so I believe in my heart that these systems that I try to put in place take that fatigue out of the equation. If your systems are in place and you're following your regimen and it's not a choice, it's just the way you are, and you're not choosing, then there's no reason to fatigue.
So these systems, should we talk about what these systems, some of what these systems are?
Yeah, I think we can generally tap on what these are, but I would like to save each system for its own.
Yeah.
I think that's great because I think there's a lot of room to run. But I think in generally speaking, we can talk about what we believe the pillars are for this method. Like if the lone wolf method is an overall housing, what are the pillars that hold it up, right? So I'll start. I think number one, first and foremost, and this is before, obviously family comes first, obviously. But in our lives, and some of those that don't have family yet, we have to have a system that took its first place for us, right? And the first one for me was fitness, right?
Yeah.
And fitness came before anything else. I grew up an athlete. I think that the value of being mobile and being athletic and being in fitness and those things is undervalued. And I don't think you realize it until you're much older, what it does for you, not just physically, not just aesthetically, but chemically, your sleep, your mood, everything is affected by this.
Mental clarity for sure.
Oh my God, it's a cascade.
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense right out of the gate. Probably another one would be financial, you say?
100%. Pillar number two,
Yeah.
I mean, we could easily call that finance. Finance for me, God, it was a long road. Yes, finance is something that can absolutely take you down.
Yeah.
If you're worried about something,
Yeah, and cause a lot of mental.
good luck.
Yeah. Right.
Now you're really
Anxiety,
leaning on
yeah.
fitness in order to find your way out of this financial headache that you're dealing with, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Finance is a huge one for me, and we'll go way into detail on how I run that, how I analyze that, and really my history on it too, because it's pretty long. But I want to go back to fitness because there's a pillar that I think sort of kind of links up with that one, and that would be diet. Diet. I think diet, or just call it wellness, I think is a number two pillar for me. And I think it couples with number one perfectly because I mean, you can pump iron all day long, you can run all day long, you can be as active as you want. But if you eat and fuel your body like a 6-year-old with a sugar frenzy, like
What did it say? You can't out-train a bad diet.
you cannot out-train a bad diet.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. That is huge. And again, we'll talk about how we can create systems around diet to take the decision making away. How many times in a day do you eat a meal that you have to think about? Right? Especially if you're a guy that's like, wow, I have these macros and I have these calories that I need to hit and I have so many grams of protein and this and that. Well, if you're thinking about that every time you put a meal together, it's going to exhaust you.
And well, you know what's interesting about this conversation and the fact that we get to sort of bounce ideas off of each other is not everyone has the same situation in their daily life either,
Totally,
right?
totally.
So some people are able to meal prep, some aren't, right?
Right.
Just given where the state of their professional situation or the person's situation.
Correct.
So I'm really interested to dig into that with you.
Pillar number 4. So pillar number 4, let's house parenting in one pillar, right? Like parenting and coaching, we'll call it coaching, I think is a big one. I think I spend a lot of effort on this.
So much to unpack there.
A lot. Like you have 2, I have 2, and a stepson. So we have 5 between us.
Yeah.
All boys. Help us.
A lot going on. A lot of energy.
A lot of energy,
Yeah.
a lot of
Responsibility.
development, right? Like raising good humans is not easy. And the challenges of today are so much harder than the challenges that I think our parents faced.
Goodness, just social media alone and how to handle that and navigate it is
God, trying to compete with the dopamine machine, like how do you create meaningful moments when the only thing they want to do is put a screen in their face? These are the things, right? These little things, anything can happen. My son fell off his bike yesterday, cut his arm, right? And he had to get stitches and he was freaking out. And I took that moment and I tried to say, what can be learned from this? If they're not learning from these failures, why are they going through it? This is not something you can learn from, then you're suffering for no reason. So I chose some things in there. We'll talk about that, like what can we learn? What lessons can I convey? How can I ease his suffering? Parenting and coaching, it's big. And here's the funny thing is for us, it's our first time. So there's no manual with this thing. You don't have an instruction manual when you get kids.
always rolled my eyes when I heard that prior to actually being a parent. Because you hear that a lot. There's no instruction manual for kids,
No,
but like, man, that brings more true today than ever before for me. It's Wild West out there trying to figure things out.
and it's day to day. Fail today, fix it tomorrow. I mean, good lord, it is a consolidated effort by two people, hopefully. All right, so pillar number five. Pillar number five for me is kind of my creative release. It's my passions, it's my creativity, it's my risk. It's where I dump my mental energies that I have left. A lot of these things that I execute, when you make them into systems, that sort of creative outlet can't really be there. And so, where do you find that sort of wholesome, feel good meaning? How do you feel accomplished in a day if everything is systematic? And I think that the one way that I do this is I try to pour myself into stuff and try to find new ways to be better at it, new passions, new hobbies. I'm growing businesses. I have a business that's churning pretty good. Staying present in that is a challenge, right? Because it becomes the everyday and you're like, well, I need to stay here. I can't just focus on other things, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff in there, and I know you have a creative side as well with the daily discipline. So we'll talk about that. So let's give ourselves a little bit of history. Let's give the viewers a little history. What did life look like for you before you started being intentional about how you lived your day to day? What did it look like before you found a reason to implement your systems of discipline?
Well, you're assuming quite a lot there that I've implemented a whole system of living here. And I've gotten, pretty good in some areas of my life in creating systems, like you mentioned physical discipline, for example.
Mhm.
Feel pretty dialed in there.
I would
But
say
there,
so.
so
Almost robotic.
we'll get into that. Yeah. Well, but there are other areas where that's not the case. So I don't want to, say, make it seem like I've got this all figured out.
How about where you felt like the need or the result of a system yielded you the benefit and you started to want to apply that to other areas of your life? Where did you find that started to happen for you?
I think that started around when we started having kids, right? Because it's
Yeah.
born out of necessity,
Oh yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Oh
And
yeah.
it wasn't so much that I said, okay, now I'm a parent, now I'm a dad, so I have to create systems. It was just sort of, forcing mechanism of time,
Hmm.
right? And resources that, okay, now I have this new human to take care of. There's a lot of resources and time and attention and need to that I want to pour into that. And so how do I maintain other areas of my life that are still also important, right? While committing, as
Right.
much as I can into my children.
How do you chop up that pie? Yeah, I get it. I've lived so many lives in this short period I've been here, man. I've been through a lot. So, I think
Or pick things up along the way.
yeah, and I think the more that I failed, the more that I started to realize because I kind of lived by this motto for a long time where it was like, be like water, strong when you need to be, go with the flow when you don't. And I think there's still a lot to be said for that.
I agree. I think that's a great approach
It
in a lot of
is.
cases.
It is. But it can also be a crutch. And when you begin to sort of turn away from things and say, it'll work itself out, I'll just stick my head in the sand and come up from air later, it got me through, I would say, emotionally. Like you were able to disassociate from some of those heavy things. But when I started to realize that, if I just put some concerted effort into the preparation of these situations, if I put these things into place, and the more I started to execute in one system, it would kind of, that mentality would kind of bleed into another and then into another. And all of a sudden, I've become very good at 3 to 4 to 5 things. And it's because of that sort of mentality, right? Like the more prepared I am, the better I can execute. And
So I'm smiling only because I think I come at it from the opposite end of the spectrum from you, where I'm a little more tightly wound naturally. We'll get into this,
oh
right?
boy.
But I've been for my whole life really successful. I've found success, I should say, in being very regimented about all sorts of different things in my life.
Yeah.
And I could benefit from more of a be like water approach and that could probably lead to better outcomes for me at this stage. And that's where I think uh, I would have more benefit of sort of letting things flow and happen,
Mhm.
and maybe having less stress in my focus on enforcing systems
Mhm.
as a result.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm interested to get into that with you.
What does being a lone wolf mean, and what does it not mean? There's an ideology behind all this that I can wrap myself into, that I can fully become. And the lone wolf is the motivation behind that. I don't need attention online. I don't need social media followings. I don't need a gym bro to help me show up. I don't need adoration from people for my habits when it comes to meal prepping, or I don't need to go and tell people how well my portfolio is doing, because I am resilient enough on my own to know that I'm doing well, right? That I have the drive within me on my own, aside from everyone else, to do everything I have to do to execute and be well. And I think that that is what this is all about, is the pursuit of wellness. So lone wolf to me is that, but what it is not, it is not isolation.
I was just going to pose that question. So, we're obviously doing this together.
Right, right.
So,
And I love when we do things together. We'll go on big hikes in the morning. We do lifts. We do stuff that's fun. We're doing this, right? This is co-op. So it
so how
is.
do you reconcile that?
It's a good question.
The lone wolf, it sort of has a certain connotation to it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But I think one of the pillars, for example, about community, right? That's a pillar for a reason.
Yeah.
So why, how do those two things exist simultaneously?
I think the lone wolf method is a propeller. It is a driver to mentally push yourself through without needing to rely on others. Whereas the community and the pack and the things that you do for your pack, and the pack could be your kids or your friends or whatever, your clients, the people you care about, that comes, it is also a very wholesome side of this, because you need it. You need it. And isolating yourself behind an ideology is not progress. It's not strength. It's it's gonna cripple you.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're not trying to be hermits here, right?
No,
And
no,
like isolate,
no.
and do everything on our own and never rely on friends and family and, you know, and a support system, right? The
Right,
point is to have that motivation, right? That self motivation and
right.
create the systems, but also the community that feeds into the why, the motivation to begin with, right?
Yes.
So it all sort of goes together.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I mean, with your regimen, I mean, I think one of the places where you execute this lone wolf method the best is definitely in your discipline with fitness. So, you know,
Sometimes a little bit too much,
no,
but
well, I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that.
yeah.
But like, I mean, this man, and I don't know anybody in my life other than you that's gone up one day on a Sunday morning and said, "I think I'll run a full marathon today."
Well, look, that was one time. I was feeling particularly, motivated that morning, and
That's a
I,
lone wolf right
it
there.
was. It was a very sort of thing to do. I will admit. I probably won't be doing that again.
Those poor children that were watching you around the track, chasing your demons. What is he doing? That's good stuff. Yeah. So it's the drive, but it's not the isolation. That's what I think.
Okay.
So this is a good one. If all these pillars are housed inside of the lone wolf method, when did you stop thinking about them all as individual things and start thinking about them as a collective?
Sure, there was or is a point in time where I went from having them be you know very distinct, individualized areas of my life to okay, now it's all integrated. I mean, I
Yeah.
think what my experience has been is more around, as we touched on at the beginning, the compounding effect
Mm-hmm.
of different aspects of
Mm-hmm.
my life.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whether that's okay, now there's a big change in our finances. We bought a house, right? We got a mortgage. We got to reconcile. How do we, adjust our life, with that, or something going on with the stock market, right? And then at the same time, there's our kids are starting kindergarten, right? And so
Mhm.
there's the community or family impact of that, along with the financial impact of that. So there's just different phases of life where these different aspects of these systems come together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In combination and require more focus and attention.
Yeah.
So I think my experience has been is I've refined different areas of those systems over time out of necessity
Mhm.
because of the phase of life that I'm in
Mhm.
and the systems that require attention at that time. And it's a journey, right? It's ongoing,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna probably pay more attention to my physical fitness, um, you know, uh, coming up here. As I prepare for certain events, for example, if we're
Mhm.
gonna take on a big physical challenge, right? And I'll
Mhm.
turn my attention to okay, how do I tweak my system around physical fitness, um, and and then look at other, other life changes like my kids are starting middle school pretty soon here, right?
Mhm.
So
Big
how
change.
do we adjust our schedule, our family life? What school is what changes are my kids gonna be going through, and what do they need? So turn my attention to that too.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just a real long-winded way of saying there is no really beginning or end. I
Agreed.
don't feel like.
Agreed. Yeah. I agree with you, but I would say it differently. I would say that I sort of hovered and these things were kind of hovering around me in space. And I would say that just like you said, there are situations in life where your attention is turned toward a new genre.
Yeah,
And so you just kind of pull that in.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're housing all these things. And as you said, like necessity rises, and so do you, right? You rise to the occasion. So I think that that's very well said.
The hovering in space is a good. Actually, that resonates really well for me. So it's all been there,
Yeah.
but it
We've been
hasn't been,
ignoring it or
yeah,
haven't seen it.
right. It hasn't been
Right.
organized into these different systems or buckets, however you want to think of it.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're 20 nothing years old, we're not thinking about the stock market and our future. Retirement. I just got old enough to buy beer. You know what I mean? Like I think you said it perfectly. When the need arises and the situation calls for it, you go through these experiences, you sort of learn what needs to change, you pull in those changes and you house them, and
Yeah.
optimize them as time goes on. And when you start to see the results and the fruits of those labors and those changes and those choices, then you kind of really get excited about it. And I think that's where I am personally. I'm starting to really see what there is to be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And things that you think could never happen to you end up on your doorstep. And you have to be ready for it. Not just like ready to be like, hey, how's it going? And just be ready to mentally adapt, to make the change, to optimize that situation and add it to your regime.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think something that people just speak for myself, right? I have this feeling that I want to constantly be improving.
Oh yeah.
I I can accomplish more. I can achieve more.
Mm.
And I also, at the same time, have this sense and this pressure that I want to enjoy my life
Mm.
and the fruits of my labor and the amazing things and family and people that I have around me too. So
Mm.
I really love this lone wolf method and the notion of the pillars in the sense that it then can create awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
That space to say, okay, there's a way to do all of these things, like take care of the practical things that you need to in your life, and also have a deep appreciation for what you have, right?
Mm.
And not let that slip. Because as I get older, I'm more and more conscious of there's moments with family, moments with friends, moments alone too that are really valuable to appreciate, and you're not going to
Mm.
get those back.
Right. Time is fleeting.
Mhm.
When I think about this is my last thought on this, and we'll move on. When you think of these pillars, you have to think of it in terms of balance. Like it's okay to extend out onto a branch for a period of time,
Right.
but you got to come back to the center and give attention to all
Yeah.
pillars, because I believe, and this can go into any aspect. If it goes into fitness, for me, there's, you know, cardio health, muscular health, and flexibility. And if you
Yeah.
focus on any one of those too much, then the other ones fall off and become problematic, right?
Yeah.
So balance, I think it always returns to balance. I think that if you need to extend yourself out onto a branch to take care of something, I think you do that, right? I think you give the attention that's needed. But if you stay out there too long and you start to forsake the other things, that's when you'll find trouble,
Yeah.
right? So
That's
it's,
where I struggle with that a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like gardening. You
When,
gotta water.
when to bring it back.
Yeah. Yeah. You get out there and you're like thinking about something too much and like, oh my God, I totally forgot about this other thing. And now it's grown into a problem, So all these things do tie together. But if when you go too far to something, you got to come back to the herd.
Yeah, and I think what resonates for me in particular about what you said is it's a little bit different than what you were saying. Is I struggle with the minutia, focusing on things that don't necessarily move the needle, right? And letting those little things compound and take up mind share. You know, I really want to utilize this approach to clear some of that clutter away, right? And focus on the things that matter and not let the other stuff get in the way and cause, undue stress. I'm so good at that.
Yeah. Let's inject problems.
Yeah.
I need a little chaos. Let's create it.
Yeah.
I think that's human nature. Who do you think this way of living is for, and who is it not for?
That's kind of an easy kind of answer there. It's not to sound too generic or anything, but it's for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I think it's probably oriented to folks who have more responsibilities, right? Certainly coming up from the perspective of being a dad with two young kids, right?
Yeah. You're a little biased.
Yeah, a little biased. So I feel like I've got a pretty full life, right?
Right.
So, but that's somebody that's younger, fewer responsibilities, perhaps, this could still absolutely be applicable.
I'll match you. I think that what you said is great. And I think that this would also speak to somebody who's maybe a little wanderer. He's a little directionless, right? He's got all this potential, but no plan. And he just sort of wanders through life and let life happen to him. And is that the way to live? I don't think it is. I think that you can live that way. I think that if you do, it's not going to be wholesome. You're always going to be searching for something. You're going to be on that hedonic treadmill, which we're going to discuss in length. But if you don't have direction, if you don't have anything in your life that you're working towards, then why are we here?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of all this if not to grow?
So that's raises a good thought in my mind. How do you know that you need a system or that you need a method? How do you know, is wandering a bad thing?
I think if you're the kind of person, and I'll just speak from my own personal space. If you're the kind of person like I was, and still sort of am sometimes, who bounces from thing to thing without ever really rooting into anything, desperately trying to find a home, maybe you're trying too much. Maybe you need to be a little more generalized in your pillars, in your situation, and then grow from there. Find the pillars and the structure of your life that are foundational, and then worry about the minutia, because you said it great, minutia, right? That person who is wandering, who's aimless, is consumed by minutia, right? This, the keeping up on social media, the newest this, I gotta go do that, I gotta go here. And it's like, do you? How well are you sleeping? Right? How well are you eating? How's your internal health? Right? I would say that if you're healthy in and around your inner side, like if you sleep well, if you eat well, if you're taking your vitamins, if you prioritize your hydration, that is going to project outward into your life, right? And if you're focusing on everything outside of that, everything inside's crumbling. So I think that the person that can't really identify his own pillars, this is for you.
So you mentioned something there about yourself that you had a feeling as you were sort of trying to find your way, right? And was it a sense of your lack of direction that you wanted to resolve? You wanted to have that direction, or was it, certain events that were happening in your life where you could objectively see this is not where I want to be, right? And I know where I want to get to. And so what do I need to do to reconcile between where I am versus where I need to get to?
No, I would say it was more of a feeling than any sort of like aha moment, right? Because I think that once I started to sort of stumble into these things and started to see the yield on those processes, that I sort of realized, oh, okay. So if I look at things this way and I set myself up for success, success is much easier to achieve. If you water the plant, it grows.
So more of a, it was a kind of more of a trial and error. Maybe that's not the right way of saying it, but just sort of observing your own successes and trials and
Yeah.
tribulations
Yeah.
and figuring out, okay, this went well, this didn't go well.
Yeah. And it's not like I had some profound moment of like, let me really sit down and think about this because, like I said, I was sort of wandering,
Yeah.
right? But when I started to sort of go, hey, life's pretty good. Why? What's happened? So, you see your little successes on one of those things and you go, how can I apply that to the other side of things? What is there some sort of common theme that sort of carries me across all these pillars? And all of a sudden I have this kind of churning forge that's just burning hot. And whatever I throw in there, it just melts down, which is great because it's not taking over your life. These little things that happen, they're like dings in your windshield rather than, a missile coming through the.
So to come back to answer your question again a second time about who is this for, and folk, I would say just anyone who's doing a little introspection on their life, right? Taking a little stock of where am I at today?
Mhm.
How am I feeling about where I'm at today and where things are headed
Mm.
from a personal standpoint, professional standpoint. It could be anything, right?
Mm.
But I'd say that folks that are ready to just do a little introspection. Where are things at? Are there opportunities here to change, to improve things for myself? But, well, you asked, who is this for,
Mhm.
right?
And who is it not for?
And who is it not for?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know who it's not for, actually.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'll find somebody out there.
I
I'll find you.
Yeah, I'm firmly in the camp of everyone could benefit from a little time, introspecting and self-reflecting. I have a hard time saying this would not be good for a certain individual. Right?
I think if you're too wayward, it works. If you're too anxious, it works. It takes the guesswork out of every day. It takes the fluctuations and the sort of peaks and valleys that may normally cause a lot of angst for somebody who's a little tightly wound, and it simplifies these equations for them. It does for me. I'm not an anxious person, but like I said, I'm more of the wanderer. So these systems create space for me to be okay
Well,
in my wandering.
Conversely, I'm a very anxious person. Yeah, so I love that because we're gonna approach it from those two different perspectives,
Right.
And
Yin and yang.
Yeah, see how that manifests for both of us.
I agree. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. These pillars are super moldable. You do not have to adopt my pillars, our pillars, right? Like these are just the pillars.
You don't have the 100% answer.
No, I don't have it patented either. So, have at it. Make it your own. I think we have a lot of room to run here.
Yeah.
And I really hope that anything that we say can sort of resonate with people and take it from us. We're in our 40s. We're on the younger side. We haven't lived our entire lives, but we're doing all right. And I think that if you're in a situation where you're not happy and you're constantly desperately looking for the answer, this gives you something to sort of look at and say, how can I apply that to my life? How can I make my life a little more systematic so that I don't have to worry all the time?
For sure.
I can stop my search. Any final thoughts today?
Excited to get into it. A lot to get into. Excited to learn from you and your experiences. I think we got a lot of great topics to dive into. So, no, just looking forward to it.
And I look forward to this journey. This is the first of many. In this particular episode, we talked about kind of the overall housing of this method. So if you liked it, please do like, subscribe, comment. Let us know where you're at in your life, what you like, what you don't like about what we said. We're going to move forward with the individual pillars from here. So stick around for the next episode. Episode 1 will probably be on fitness, so look for that coming soon. Thanks a lot, you guys. Peace.